Hey, Mary, is your last name pronounced Agneberg? How do you?
That's correct.
Okay, great, thanks.
And do I call it to order as my notes say? Or do you do that?
I do that
folks,
now.
we are live on Facebook.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 19th meeting of the Lower Russian River MAC. It's good to see all your faces. Hopefully, in the next few months, we'll be off of Zoom and be able to do this live. But for right now, I hope everyone's keeping healthy, safe, and you got your vaccinations. But anyway, I want to call the meeting to order. It's now 5:32 p.m. And we're going to start off with our new secretary, Mary Agneberg, leading the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Woohoo. All right, Mary, do you want to do a roll call?
I would love to. Pip Marquez de la Plata,
Here.
present. Vesta Copestakes,
Present.
Jeanette Dillman. No. Tony Goodwin.
Here.
Nick Pereira.
Here.
Naomi Huffstetter.
Here.
Ira Wink.
Present.
Lisa Namenson.
Present.
Alice Teeter.
Present.
And that's all that I have. I see that Jeanette has arrived.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, we're all set.
All right, thank you.
Is Mike here?
No, Mike will not be.
No,
here.
Okay.
I'm here in his place. I'm the alternate for
Okay.
Kaz.
Thank you.
All right, so the first order of business is the approval of the agenda tonight. I do have one change I'd like to make, if that's okay with everyone, in that Tasha from CARES will actually do a little talk about El Molino High School, not Naomi. That was a mistake that we made on the agenda itself. And that'll be a short little section a little bit later in the agenda. Anyone else have any changes?
There was a crossed out something or other of H, the staff's report. It had little, just minor lines through it. Is that no longer part of the agenda tonight?
I just couldn't figure out how to get rid of those stupid lines.
Okay, so that part is not part of the agenda then. Okay.
It is
That's
part of
all.
the
It
agenda.
is part of
Oh,
the
it
agenda.
is part of the agenda.
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
All right.
It is part of the agenda.
So I can, I forgot the term.
Move. You can move.
Move to approve this agenda. Thank you.
I'll second it. That's Lisa seconding.
Lisa, okay.
All right. Mary, you want to?
Roll call vote. Pip Marquez,
Yep.
Vesta Copestakes,
Yes.
Jeanette Dillman,
Yes.
Tony Goodwin,
Yes.
Nick Pereira,
Yes.
Naomi Huffstetter,
Yes.
Kyra Wink,
Present. Or approved?
Lisa Namenson,
Yes, Nominson.
thank you.
No
And
problem.
Alice Teeter.
Where's Alice? There she is,
She's there somewhere.
but she's muted.
Okay.
Oh, she's alive and well.
All right.
Did you vote, Alice? On the minutes? On
We had a little dog issue. Approved. Thank you.
okay, great.
Okay. Great. So now is the time. If anyone has a conflict of interest that they need to let us know about regarding anything on the agenda, now's the time to do it. Nobody? Okay. As there move on to correspondence, there has been no correspondence that has been incoming this month. So that's we're gonna now move on to the consent calendar. And this time we have 2 sets of minutes that we need to approve. The April 15th minutes had multiple changes that were made during the meeting. And I believe it was Mike Nichols asked that we would move the approval to this month. So that's what we've done. So we've got the April minutes to approve along with the June 17th minutes. We did do something a little bit different this time, where we got the minutes out to folks a little bit earlier so we can get all those comments incorporated to save a little bit of time at the meeting. So does anyone want to move to approve the minutes or have any changes or anything to say about them?
I move to approve.
I second that.
Great. So Mary, you want to?
Do a roll call vote.
Yep.
Hip Marquez de la Plata,
Yes.
Vesta Copstakes,
Yes.
Jeanette Gilman,
Yes.
Joni Goodwin,
Yes.
Nick Pereira,
Yes.
Naomi Huffstetter,
Yes.
Ira Wink,
Yes. Present and yes.
Lisa Nominson,
Yes.
Alice Teeter.
Yes.
Very good. That's unanimous. It passes.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now's the time. I hope everyone that's listening in, that's not on the council, has had a chance to read the agenda. But this is the time for any comment on non-agendized items. It will be limited to 2 minutes per person. There will be a clock. I know the clock has been controversial, but the clock will come up when there's 30 seconds left. And that is just to keep us on time. So is there anyone in the public that has a comment on an item that's not on the agenda? I don't see any hands. Jason, do you see anyone?
No hands raised this time, and we don't have anything on Facebook. No comments.
All right, great. I think that's the first for anything in the Lower Russian River. But okay, so let's move on to the regular calendar. Yeah. Did someone say something? All right, let's move on to the regular calendar items. The first is Supervisor Hopkins up, and she's going to give us an update on some of the issues around the unhoused and the COVID surge update. I do want to let everyone know that there will be a separate town hall that will be scheduled to talk about the unhoused issues coming up. So that will allow a more robust conversation to happen on that very topic. But given that, Linda, you want to?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Chair. So I'm going to start with unhoused, and then I'll go into COVID. And I do have a brief update that I received from Parks as well that I'll add in if it's okay through the chair to provide that update. Great.
Great.
So I want to start by reporting out on a meeting that was held July 22nd. We had nearly a 3-hour-long meeting that was hosted at the Senior Center. And I actually want to start off by apologizing in which that I had really wished that we had invited our Grenville MAC reps. But just so that everyone knows, it was really convened as an intent to bring together the neighbors of the original encampment in downtown, and then the sort of secondary encampment that was then shifted over to the park and ride, and the service providers to really talk about those local issues. But in hindsight, I will try to make sure that we extend an invitation to our local MAC reps and also the chair of the board as well. It was intended to be a 1-hour brief, mostly listening session, and it turned into a nearly 3-hour meeting in which we did also discuss solutions. We spent quite a bit of time just hearing the concerns of the neighbors, hearing the impacts when the encampment was downtown, and then hearing about the new, the sort of impacts that have occurred when it shifted over to the park and ride. And also just explaining the county process, which was that at the time that residents sort of took the matters into their own hands, there actually was a county process already going forward to clear the encampment from downtown. But because we have to meet very specific legal criteria, and we did have a member of our county council team attend this meeting to kind of go into the legal details, it does take time to move forward with clearing encampments. And so we were actually sort of midstream in that process when the encampment moved to the park and ride. So we were able to then continue with the process at the park and ride. But before I move into the process of the encampment clearing, which I'll also describe, I do want to share some of the solutions that the community members who were present at that meeting on July 22nd rallied around. Number one was to look at the acquisition of George's Hideaway for homeless services and potentially sort of a tiny house type village in the back portion of the property. This is not a new idea. There was a committee that came out of the Russian River redevelopment effort. If I recall correctly, it was called RACAD, and that committee kind of came up with a short list of properties, and it was a very short list, and that was pretty much one of just a couple properties that was on that list that was sort of deemed appropriate for that use by this committee of community members. It was that property, and there was also a property that's owned by Herman J. Hernandez, kind of on the other end of town, that really rose to the top as the two possible sites. The county also actually looked at acquiring the George's Hideaway property before I was even on the board. It was considered in closed session, and I believe at that point the property needed quite a bit of rehabilitation. The owners have since done some of that rehabilitation work, and I would just add that there is also state funding potentially available for this kind of thing. I just received word that Project Home Key, which is the state funding that we utilize to acquire the Sebastopol Inn and Hotel Azura, which I'll be talking about a little bit later, that they're actually going to be broadening the eligibility. And so you no longer will have to have turnkey properties that can immediately convert into permanent supportive housing. You could actually buy raw land and build permanent supportive housing, or you could look at properties like George's that are sort of distressed and need rehabilitation in order to become more functional. So I just want to sort of throw that out there. That was one of the solutions that the community was interested, the community members who were in at that meeting were interested in pursuing. Another solution that also had broad consensus from the group that was convened was looking at Laura's Law implementation in Sonoma County, which can mandate treatment for folks who are at risk of harming themselves or others. And so that is something the county has not yet had kind of the funds and the means to implement, but it's something that we could consider implementing in Sonoma County. Another solution that was supported by the community was looking at expanding homeless or drug court in Sonoma County. And this would essentially utilize probation as a tool to sort of encourage folks to accept services, right? So you get into a situation where it's like, okay, you have two options, right? You can, either wind up incarcerated, or you can look at sort of treatment programs and kind of have, probation, who really probation officers truly serve as social service workers in Sonoma County, try and encourage folks, to sort of stay on that path. And so that's another potential avenue for looking at solutions in Sonoma County. So those were the three solutions that were kind of identified by the community at that meeting. Now I'm going to flash forward to the encampment clearing day at the Park and Ride, which was Wednesday, August 4th. Unfortunately, I couldn't be on site because I had meetings nonstop starting at 7:30 that morning, but I was staying in text communication with folks who were on site at the encampment clearing. And I am pleased to report that we had 6 residents accept services on the day of the encampment clearing. 2 went to Los Guilicos Village, 3 went to the hotel in Windsor, 1 went to the Grenville Vets Hall, and 1 has subsequently accepted offers of service after a stay in the hospital and will be placed either at Elderberry Commons, which is the new name for Sebastopol Inn, or at Mickey Zane Place, which is what was formerly called Hotel Azura. We also did have a couple of folks accept services in the lead up to the encampment clearing, but that was just what took place on that day and subsequently. And I know that might not sound like a lot, but that is actually the most successful encampment clearing that we've ever had in Sonoma County in terms of percent residents who accepted services. Getting about half the folks who were really the long-term is actually a really big deal. Usually it's, a small fraction of people who accept services. And so I want to give a huge amount of credit to the county outreach workers who were there but more importantly, to Tim Miller at West County Community Services and to Amy McGraw, who had developed individual relationships with the folks at the encampment. And so it was really this beautiful coming together of government, local nonprofits, and local grassroots community activists. And it was the trust in Amy and in Tim that really honestly got folks to accept the services that the county had offered. So there's no such thing as a perfect encampment clearing. There really isn't. But what we have found is that, by establishing trusting relationships with the unsheltered residents, by always making sure that those services are provided, we get more and more folks to accept services kind of as we go through these things. And so, for instance, looking back at Joe Rodota Trail, right? There were a lot of folks who didn't accept services when we went to clear the Joe Rodota Trail encampment. We then followed them to the next encampment. And then when that was cleared, more accepted services. And then the third time, even more accepted services. And so it's really, I think, about consistency and making sure that folks have the services available for them when they're ready to accept services. And that's the critical thing, is meeting them where they are in that moment and making sure you've got what they need when they are willing to accept it. So on that note, then I want to talk a little bit about, sort of going forward. One thing that's happening right now in response to the concern regarding fire risk at homeless encampments, not that are the ones that we don't see, right? They're the ones that are not downtown. I actually went on a hike with a number of folks, including regional parks and Monterey Fire Chief Steve Baxman, in some of the areas where we had experienced fires outside of Monterey. And so we are working with a community member and with Chief Baxman, and Elise is going to be helping sit down and map out, to the best of our knowledge, where some of these really rural homeless encampments are, so that we can get those on a map, literally, and on the radar for service provision, both from working hopefully with West County Community Services, but also getting our county street outreach teams out there. And we've also had offers from folks like Amy, like Carrie Sorensen, to go out there and also educate folks on fire risk, and to try to say, hey, you know what can we do to support you in order for you to not then start fires, right? So is that, food drops? Is that making sure that everyone has a fire extinguisher? Some of the practical things. Ultimately, as the county, we can't kick people off of private property. That's actually the property owner who has to work directly with the sheriff's office to do that. We are responsible for publicly owned property, including the Tor property that was acquired outside of Monterey. And in response to the fire that occurred on that property, we have stepped up patrols of regional parks. And we're working actively to try to open that park to the community, not like to a sort of big, grand, giant opening of, new trails and everything, but just a community use so that we can keep eyes on the park and try to decrease the fire risk in the future. And as the chair mentioned, we will be working to schedule a town hall in Grenville, or virtually in Grenville at some point in the future, and really regarding a couple of different types of property acquisitions, right? We want to have the conversation surrounding homeless services and what we can do to address homelessness in the lower Russian River. But I also want to have a conversation, and these are separate, but we want to try to get the community, together in the same space, even if that's virtually, surrounding public safety buildings in Grenville. The fact is that the sheriff's substation and the fire station are both unreinforced masonry, and they need to be replaced urgently if we want to make sure that our first responders are available and not buried under rubble in the event of an earthquake. The other thing is that when you look at the Grenville Vets Hall, it is also, and I'm about to be interrupted by a 2-year-old, so sorry about that. Okay. My apologies. So the other thing is that the Grenville Vets Hall is really in bad shape. And when you talk to general services, they talk to me about how there actually isn't really a formal foundation to the Grenville Vets building. Like, it was built on piles of lumber. And so as those, have sort of started to decay and decompose over time, we're actually having a situation where all 4 walls of the Grenville Vets Hall are starting to kind of lean in opposite directions. And ultimately, we know that it's in the floodplain on the bank of the river. And so, if that building is not going to be functional in the future, what can we do to recreate a space, whether it's on that space or in a different space, maybe potentially out of the floodplain, that can meet those needs of our veterans and also of our community gatherings? In addition to that, we also have an opportunity to look at neighborhood service centers. So instead of having to drive to downtown Santa Rosa to meet with the county, right, you could actually have an annex that would be in West County that would be closer. So we're kind of looking at potentially a couple different sites in the lower Russian River for those services. On one hand, you have homelessness. On the other, you have the emergency services. And in addition to fire and sheriff, we also want to talk about the emergency pre-positioning of supplies. So I've been working with the Department of Emergency Management, and the idea is to have basically emergency equipment, including, medical equipment, but also like meals ready to eat and, emergency shelters and those kinds of things if we were to cut off from the 101, for instance, in the event of an earthquake. So that's all I've got on kind of homelessness and infrastructure. Shifting over now to the COVID surge, I'm going to start off with some good news, which is that we have hit 80% vaccinated in Sonoma County. More than 80% of our population has had at least one dose of a COVID vaccine. I believe we're at 72% for folks who have the full 2 doses. But the good news is we're actually seeing an uptick in demand over the past couple of weeks. I think that, the news about the Delta variant, about some of the challenges and sadly, the deaths that we have seen in healthy young people, both nationally and internationally, has had an impact in Sonoma County. So we're actually seeing folks show up to get vaccinated at a really good rate, about 1,000 a day. And we had 1,400 a couple days ago, which was really good. Bad news is Delta variant continues to spread in Sonoma County. We, of course, now have mandatory masking indoors and public setting. And then on Tuesday, the county just passed a policy for our more than 4,000 county employees that says either you need to show proof of vaccination or you need to be tested for COVID-19 on a weekly basis. So employees do have an option, but that is the policy that we passed. If you check out the county Facebook page, there was a whole town hall meeting last night, so I'm not going to go over all that data again, but there was a great presentation that has graphs regarding the current transmission rates. And kind of one high level summary that I think is important for everyone to know is that we are seeing a significantly higher transmission rate in unvaccinated residents compared to vaccinated residents. And we are also seeing a much higher rate of hospitalization, including, intubation and ventilation in unvaccinated residents as compared to vaccinated residents. All right, now I'm going to wrap up quickly. I'm sorry, this has been kind of a long update. I had a lot to cover. Parks update. So the Board of Supervisors did award the Grenville River Park Phase 2 bid just last Tuesday. This is a roughly $1 million project. It includes constructing a non-motorized boat staging and portage area, a second park entrance, a parking lot, which I think is really good for downtown Grenville. We're going to have more parking, which is a good thing. Invasive species removal and native planting, as well as new ADA accessible paths and picnic sites for groups and families. So the idea is to benefit non-motorized boaters, picnickers, walkers, nature lovers, sport fishermen, and those seeking an alternative to the often crowded river access locations that we have elsewhere. And the good thing about it, right, is it's walking distance to downtown. So hopefully it's also going to support our downtown small businesses. Construction does start in September, and the new facility is expected to open, I believe, this year or next year. So we're going to be sending out a press release on that around September 1st. So that's what I've got, and I will hand it back to Chair Marquez de la Plata.
All right, thanks, Linda. Does anyone on the council have any questions or comments for Linda? Vesta.
I just want to applaud the George's Hideaway as a choice. When it was first brought up, one of the things I thought about was that if people were to help build it, learn some skills in the process, that learn carpenter skills, electrician, plumbing, they could actually feel like an ownership in it. It does need work, but it is a rather perfect location in that it doesn't really impact neighbors. It's close enough to town that there's a bus stop right there. So if people did want to get a job, I'm so glad to see that coming back on the plate for a possibility. So thank you.
Nick, I see your hand.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with Vesta. There are a long list of other reasons other than the condition of the buildings why that site was not ideal. And so we'll be interested in, sharing those with you as we go down the road.
Great. Anyone else in the council? All right. What about in the public sphere out there? Or anyone have any questions or comments for Linda on the subject she talked about? Jason, I don't see any hands.
Don't see any hands raised right now, Chair, and we don't have any questions in the Q&A, but a reminder to the attendees that they can submit questions using the Q&A function also.
All right, great. Thank you, Linda. Okay, next up, Elise and the Catch Creative Agency are going to talk a little bit about the Russian River Confluence and Revitalization Project. This is a big project that is going to impact us all in the lower Russian River, encouraging people to do eco-friendly things. So Elise, you there?
Yep, just pushing all my buttons. Here we are. So we've had two projects working, the Russian River Revitalization Project and the Russian River Confluence. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Confluence, and then the Catch Creative team is going to speak a little bit about their work on the Russian River Revitalization Project. You may see a poll popping up. That is really distracting. And maybe we could put it at the end, Jason. I thought maybe we could run while I was speaking, but it's really hard to look at the slides and have polls popping up in you at the same time. So the Confluence Russian River the Russian River Confluence was formed in 2017 in response to the fact that the Russian River watershed is really struggling. The water quality and quantity continue to degrade, even though we have a lot of different organizations working on it. You guys can see the impact of that every single day. And so the concept was to bring together organizations that are working on the river to row in the same direction, to set priorities and to work together. The mission being to drive community action towards a healthy, resilient, and regenerative Russian River, and to aim for a healthy economic, environmental, recreation, and spiritual heart of the river. Next screen, Brant. Just wanted to give you a quick overview of the various organizations that are involved so far. We have over 18 organizations, including supervisors, First Nations, Water Board, Sonoma County Tourism, many different organizations that are coming together to work on this. And they're all really quite excited to have this opportunity to figure out the most damaged points and to really triage and address the issues with the river. So we have set 3 major priorities, and the Russian River Revitalization Project is one of those 3. So let me just give you a quick overview of what those are. The first one is watershed protection and restoration. We're working on the quantity and quality of water supply to support water beneficial uses. We want to work on the recognition of the tie between the healthy watershed functions and the economic and cultural health of communities. And we want to create metrics to measure crisis areas and progress to triage and address the greatest damage first. The second priority is to establish effective communications across the watershed. What one of the water board leaders said to me is, we're scientists. We know all this stuff and we know what's going on, but we don't know how to communicate it and to capture and engage the hearts of the stakeholders. So this is a pretty critical piece of the puzzle. And then lastly, building up the Russian River Confluence infrastructure to achieve our ambitious goals. So the piece that the communication strategic priority is to establish effective communications across the watershed and campaign for watershed health and recovery. We want to inspire and engage communities to contribute towards the health of the river. We also want to have the communication send people towards pathways for beneficial participation, integrating stewardship of the river into participation, engaging businesses, landowners, residents, and visitors. And interestingly enough, since getting this started, we've been hearing so many great things that are going on, and it's going to be really wonderful to share and expand those activities through this communications channel. We want to communicate the vulnerability of the river. I mean, now in the drought, it's kind of obvious, but in good years, it's hard to see, and the need for immediate and urgent actions. And we also want to create an understanding of how projects in one area affect another and connect the dots to how the watershed works as a whole. you will find that people upstream will do projects that we've never heard of that are affecting downstream quite a bit. And they may not be understanding how they're affecting downstream. People downstream may not understand why things have changed. So it's really important to connect those dots. So we put together an RFP, and the marketing committee of the Russian River Confluence did a really rigorous analysis of the different applicants and chose Catch Creative for this work. Now it's over to Catch Creative to finish this.
Yeah, thanks Elise, and thanks everybody for having us. We're excited to share a little bit about ourselves, just so you know who we are, how we work, and maybe share a little bit of dimension to this project that we're working on. I think to start off, we'll share a little bit about our agency and kind of our work experience and why we thought we were a good fit for this. And maybe let's just keep the polling towards the end. Brant, do you maybe want to dive in here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been, we're a local creative company. We're based out of Healdsburg. And we're right across from the river. So we, the river is near and dear to our heart. And so, we've been working in Sonoma County for 15 plus years. We really started as a storytelling agency and content creation. But, as things have evolved, we've evolved into a full service design, creative and marketing agency. And we've gotten really the opportunity, I would say, to work with brands of all shapes and sizes, some big, some small, some national, some local, which really is just been a great experience. And then really as an agency, I think one of the things that perhaps sets us aside from the others is that we really are kind of developing a way to kind of flex and fit with our clients. So we don't have a huge staff. What we try to do is really kind of take on the work that Ryan and I, as the business owners, really want to work with and can really see it through and provide the necessary attention. So volume is not necessarily something I'd say we're really known for. It's more about going deep, going long. And with that said, this is just so you guys get a chance to know us. This is just an example of some of our work. And, I think, as I was saying, one of the best things about this is that we've gotten the opportunity to kind of get to know all different types of organizations in a variety of different industries, everything from the corporate world to the nonprofit world to the local government world. And as a result, it's kind of made our creative knives somewhat sharp, if you will. And, it's some great, reputable companies and organizations that are within our backyard here, and even larger than that. But, namely some work that we've done is, helping Sonoma Land Trust rebrand a few years back. The same with Becoming Independent. Wineries with a, kind of biodynamic, kind of organic focus with Fetzer, and Hanford is a wonderful employer out of Petaluma that's, in the heavy civil construction and conservation space. Ton of dairy work that we've done, really getting to kind of know the agricultural community, which leads us to Ag and Open Space. We're lucky enough to be, working with them all the way to coffee, and kind of everything in between. You've got folks like Nordstrom up in Seattle and Whole Foods as well that we've gotten the opportunity to do some work with. So, I think we've got a fairly, long list, and I'm not going to bore you guys with this stuff, but it just helps you get to know who we are a little bit. And we're just super excited to be involved in this project, getting a chance to meet the community in a way that perhaps we wouldn't have without this project. So nice to meet you all.
And let me just add, professionally, we're super excited to have this project, but then on a personal level, I think it would just be nice to share it. I grew up along the river. I've lived in many different towns along the river. My grandparents had a vacation home, moved up here in the 50s. My parents grew up here. So when I saw this project come in, just to see the sort of intersection between, my personal life and my professional life and just all the opportunity there, I think we were, again, just as Catch, just excited to do another project that spoke to, how we feel personally and the things that we care about, and then combine that with our experience. So yeah, very excited. And even though I've grown up along the river, we've learned so much just being part of this project. And I think that's a great segue into this, So we broke this project down into 3 phases. First one, research, discovery, planning. Like I was just saying, I feel intimately aware of the river and the community, but I can't presume that I know everything. And I think engaging in this project and engaging in phase 1, we've just learned an immense amount, talking from everybody from business owners to county professionals to tourists, just being as observant, collecting information and trying to understand the issues that are important to everybody. So yeah, 3-phase project. First one's research, discovery, planning, fully understanding the situation, the opportunities. Then phase 2, identity design, campaign development. That's really the creative portion of the project. That's where we take all the research, all the thinking, all the conversations we've had, and put together the creative materials that this campaign calls for. And then lastly, it's expression. It's getting it out there, getting the word, spreading the word, doing whatever's possible to sort of, extend all of the great ideas and do whatever possible to kind of elevate the perception of this region with whatever tools we have accessible to us. So to go deeper into phase 1, which is really where we are right now, which is why we're excited to be here, because it's really, like I said, getting a deep understanding of the communities along the river and the challenges we all face. And how do we go about doing that? It's having conversations. We're trying to talk to as many people as possible. We have a big list of key stakeholders. I mean, we've made, nearly 100 invites to have an interview, conversation. This is a one-on-one, interaction we're trying to have. We're going to continue to do that, but we've been conducting many interviews. Not as many as we like. I mean, we just to be honest, we did reach out to a lot of people, and we've gotten, maybe 25% response rate, which is good. But for how passionate I know this community is, we were kind of surprised. We thought people would be more excited to talk to us, but the door is still open. So what do we do about that? We become more proactive. We have street teams going out. We're calling them river teams here for fun. That is actually teams of people just going out, meeting people at popular places, having conversations, engaging them, forcing people to answer our questions and just get an understanding of who they are, where they're from, what they're doing, what they love about the river, things that they don't like about the river, and really just trying to understand as many perspectives as possible and get ideas, be inclusive, and just have the opportunity to have this be, a community-led sort of initiative as much as we can possibly do that.
And Ryan,
and
if I can butt in really
Yeah.
quickly, it's also just being creative individuals. I'd love to be able to tell you that we're able to just sit in the office and wait for lightning to strike, and we go and do amazing things. It's not really like that, and usually good creative comes from a lot of hard work, a lot of research. And so really, a lot of the objective with these stakeholder interviews, the river teams going out there, is to really kind of, arm us as a creative team to be able to make the most effective use of, the objectives of the campaign and really get out there. So just a point that I wanted to make, and that's kind of why we're doing this, at this stage.
Yeah. I mean, the reality of the situation is you can only have so many cooks in the kitchen, right? There's only a few people, and we're, lucky enough to be the group that gets to create the work. But we want to be inspired by the community, everybody's opinions, and do our best to do something that represents the people, do something, because not only does it need to be effective, but we need people to trumpet our message. We need help getting the word out there, spreading the ideas that we have, being part of maybe potentially a behavioral shift. It's a really aspirational goal that's going to need a lot of people's participation. So beyond that, research includes exploring other campaigns out there, other like-minded initiatives that have taken place that have found success, understanding you know, what somebody else has gone through and the challenges they've gone through and the realities and the hurdles and all those things, just doing whatever we can do, being a sponge to creating the best possible outcome for this project.
Yeah, and with that said, you know, along the way, we really wanted to be able to develop a resource that kind of serves as a central place that's kind of showing progress. And so we have the domain RussianRiverRevitalization.org. And we've recently pushed a new design of the website that has a couple of these key pieces on the left-hand side. So it's bilingual, so it can be in English and Spanish, which it's been incredible to just see, how many Spanish-speaking individuals are really enjoying the river. So, some things that have come up in the research, but this website it's responsive for desktop, tablet, and mobile. So basically whatever, device you're getting your information on, which there are many of, this site's going to kind of contort and do whatever it needs to kind of meet you where you are in your device. There's an interactive online survey that is a great tool for us, if we're in a quick conversation and we just need to kind of be able to, hey, we want to find a couple of things about, it's a great place to go and to provide information. There's project information, there's Russian River information, there's frequently asked questions, there's an inquiry and a mailing sign-up list, and we think the design is doing a good job, and it's got a cheery, kind of vibrant side to it.
So this is one of the many open doors we have, right? We have a survey there, so you can make your voice heard, share your opinion anonymously or not, whatever it takes to get your thoughts. Contact forms for people involved in the project, email subscription, any which way. We're trying to just keep the door wide open. And if there's any ideas that you folks have of how we could be doing a better job engaging the community, we're all ears.
Yep. And then with that, we really were excited to have the ability to do some polling with you all to really, collaborate with you and get some insight from you all. So I'm not sure, I probably need to stop sharing, I would assume, for that to happen.
It's our first time doing the polling, and Jason's getting it queued up for us.
Awesome.
It'll be really a great tool for us in general for the MAC to be able to poll people on different questions.
Okay, folks, I've launched the second poll. I'll let it run for a little bit and see what kind of responses we get, and then I'll cycle through the list.
Thank you, Jason.
I was on mute, sorry. So are we ending on the poll? Is that where we're, or do you guys have more to talk about, Elise?
We're ending on the poll, and then we'll have Q&A.
Okay.
Start the Q&A while we're polling.
Yeah, that's great. So first off, to council members, what questions, comments, or anything do you have for Catch or for Elise? Vesta?
I was unaware of your research. How do we find it so that we can participate and share that with people we know?
Yeah, I think, that's kind of a valuable piece that we didn't really realize just how important it was. So we have all this information, notes, we have spreadsheets from the street teams, and we're going to have to condense it and put it in a way, because we do want to share it. We find it to be pretty valuable. We've already been reporting some of the sort of anecdotal findings. So it's definitely on us.
Sorry, Ryan, I'm not sure if you're answering the question she was asking. Vesta,
Okay.
Were you asking how is it that you can share this so that other people can participate in providing information?
Yeah, that's part of it because I was unaware of it. And if I had been aware of it, I would have enthusiastically shared it.
Yes, we now have the website russianriverrevitalization.org, and on there is the survey and a way to sign up for more information and also to participate.
Thanks, Elise.
All right, any other council members have any questions or comments? I'll just say, oh, go ahead, Tony.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm trying to wrap my head around what exactly is happening here. And it to me it sounds like we're talking about the river area in general, not just the river itself. Is that
Talking
correct?
about the entire Russian River watershed, because as you know, it's really funny actually. During the drought, there are people whose wells are right on the very edge of the river, and they say, well, we don't take any water from the river, but obviously the uplands of the the trees that are in the watershed, the creeks that are feeding into the watershed, everything from the headwaters to the ocean is a very important part of the whole. And so one of the keys is bringing together the information of the whole. It was great this weekend. I was able to sit down with some people from Jackson Family Wineries that are working on groundwater recharge. So how can they take wastewater and help recycle that water? It's great to see so many different projects happening. There's a First Nations project where they took out invasive weed in a section and were able to reclaim tens of millions of gallons of water that went back into the river. So we want to take the good things that are happening on the watershed from the tip to the stern and replicate those and expand them throughout.
The survey kind of leads me to believe that it might have to do with tourism as well, and just kind of our local economy, the health of the communities. Is that
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we talked about was the beneficial uses of water. And one of the most beneficial uses of water is making wine and attracting tourists. Those are important uses. And one of the goals of the project is to have these different uses work sustainably together. So if we create a great brand, a great iconic Keep Tahoe Blue kind of brand that promotes the river as an ecotourism spot throughout the country and the world, and then we have perhaps merchandise like that will keep single-use plastics out of the river and help businesses promote themselves at the same time. So if we can address business concerns and resident concerns and help the river at the same time, that's what we want to achieve. And this is the revitalization project is the foundational tool set for the communications priority.
wonderful? I appreciate this, and I, as a constituent, I often wonder how do you do that? I mean, our economy is based on tourism, and it's finding that happy medium. But one thing that I am is I'm seeing that a lot of our families and children are moving out of the area to suit more tourism or Airbnb and stuff like that. Is this something that will possibly be looked into in this survey and with these?
Well, there's the survey and the initial communications piece. The Russian River revitalization piece is the first step in creating this toolbox. Affordable housing and vacation rental structure and things like that are at the moment being worked on within the Board of Supervisors concurrently. I expect that as the Confluence project grows and we do look at that term beneficial uses of water, it will have a lot to do with whether one of the beneficial uses of water is water going into new development, and what does that mean, and into agricultural uses, and what does that mean for those permits. So I expect we'll be looking into those questions, but not at this point.
All right, I appreciate that.
Naomi, you had your hand up?
I think I had some similar thoughts or questions as Tony. I feel like part of the presentation is about taking care of the river and the environment, but I'm wondering if it's really based upon increasing tourism and making things more inviting for visitors. I guess I'm having a hard time seeing that it's balanced.
So yeah, I'll take a crack at it. I mean, this is not a tourism campaign by any means. We're not trying to necessarily attract more people to come. I think it's about protecting the health of the river itself and then the community that kind of depends on a healthy river. So that's a behavioral thing. So if people are coming and they're coming, right? In the last 5 years, we've seen a major spike in what's happening to the river. But as people are coming, the health of the river has been diminishing by the way people are treating it. So we see that as an opportunity. If people are going to come, why can't they be stewards of the river? You know, why can't they leave it better than they found it? It's completely possible, very aspirational, but it's something that we should be working towards.
Thank you.
Alice?
Thank you. Yeah, just to that end, Ryan, would we be looking at education plans, and when would we expect to start seeing some of the branding around the communities on the river?
Yeah, so the timeline is this year, and the goal is 2021 to launch the campaign. And then of course it'll, you know, take a lot of time to build momentum as brands and campaigns do. Education opportunities are being explored. The resources to do that, you know, there needs to be a system in place to administer it and see it through and support it and sustain it, which is possibly something we'll talk about as we develop the strategy.
Nick?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think one of the things, at least in the Grenville area, you're running into is project fatigue, because we just went through one of these whole rebranding things a few years ago, and we got a dubious slogan and spent a lot of money and didn't accomplish anything. And this sounds so similar to what we were pitched the last time around. I'm just letting you guys know you've got some project fatigue here. This is like, wait, didn't we just do this? So, you know, I understand it's not necessarily the same thing, but it sounds and looks very similar. And you know, so I'm just trying to explain, you know, maybe some of why you're not getting the engagement that you think you should.
I appreciate that. Elise, do you maybe want to speak to that?
I wasn't around at that point, so I can't make a comparison. I do know that this project, unlike the last one, I believe, does have the legs to go because we have a lot of participating organizations behind it. We're following the model of Keep Tahoe Blue, which has been successful for over 35 years and engaging people in protecting the Tahoe group. We have an amazing, I wish I could re-show that slide right now, amazing group of organizations involved that are all working on this rather than just one that was working on the last one, I believe. So I can't really compare it, but I do think that there is a lot of will here to improve our watershed because the Russian River communities really do care about our natural beauty that we live in and depend on for our livings. So we'll see.
I have a comment. I really appreciate the research and the reaching out to community members here to get their input into this process. And it's sort of related to maybe what Nick was saying, that at least this is my belief in this project, is that the most important people to buy into this are going to be the people that live here, because they'll be able to get that message out if they believe it too. And so if you can break down any of that resistance before you even get to the creative part, it will make it a much more successful campaign. That's just my 2 cents. All right, anyone else on the council? Vesta.
Just one thing, I'm very grateful that it's a local company and people who've grown up here and understand the river. The last one was somebody completely out of town and they came up with redwoods in the river. And it was like, really? As if we couldn't have come up with that ourselves, someone who's local. So thank you so much for choosing someone who is one of us. Thank you, thank you.
All right, sorry, I got dogs in the background. Anyone else in the council? All right, let's open it up to the public for public comment. If there's anyone that has their hands up or wants to say anything. Any questions for Elise or Catch? I don't see any hands. Jason, am I missing anything?
Chair, I'm not seeing any hands, and there's nothing in the Q&A.
Okay, all right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next topic, I wish we didn't have to have Fire Chief Tuberville Hill here. But I'm glad he is. He's going to talk a little bit about what's going on with fires right now. Give us a little background on what's going on with fire behavior and what the county's doing right now. So Marshall, you're on.
Okay, can everybody hear me and see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll keep this hopefully to about 15 minutes or so. I was going to show some videos specific to the lower Russian River area and northwestern portion of Sonoma County and the Redwood Forest. So this is actually almost a year to the day that I captured this video, August 19th of 2020 during the Walbridge fire. But at the same time, it's also bad timing in that we're in the middle of the current 2021 fire season. And we're kind of at this point just holding on for the ride. It's not a good time to do vegetation management. We right now want to focus on preventing fires from occurring and being prepared to evacuate if needed. So the first video is just going to talk, and I think you guys have some sound here too. I mean, it's loud, but this is what I'm calling extreme fire behavior in the Redwood Forest in the lower Russian River, northwest portions of Sonoma County. You can see this is what you can expect if you're evacuating when the fire's happening. You see the material falling from the trees. This is the end of Milk Creek Road, so it's more or less a one-lane road, but there is some of those roads in our area. You can start seeing some of the embers that fall from the sky out in front of the fire. You can see the fire creating its own weather with the tree branches moving. And this is in the bottom of a canyon, more or less. So you can see that the fire is backing, burning downhill against the slope. There's some of those embers, and you can see the leaves moving with the wind that the fire creates. And this is just a reminder that when the Sonoma County Sheriff, through the fire agencies, calls for an evacuation, like we had on the Walbridge, or that also during the Kincaid fire, also during the Myers fire last year, is that we're basically, as firefighters, there's not much we can do to stop this type of fire from burning. So we need to get you out of harm's way so we can focus on saving your houses, stopping the fire, and we're at a big disadvantage. So how do you prepare for this? What is this summer looking like? Well, we know because of our lack of rainfall that our vegetation is dry, cured. Think about the grass that you pull up from the ground and you set it on the ground. It's just going to dry out, the normal seasonal process. So that's the first video there, and then I'm going to show you a second video that's going to be a little bit slower. Sorry about that. And this is a video I took trying to actually protect this old structure here. You're going to see off to the left of the screen. I'm talking on the radio and I'm trying to do a couple other things at the same time here. So I just set my camera on the back of my truck. What I was talking about before this next clip was, what can we do to prevent the loss of life? Well, that's evacuation. What can we do to prevent the loss of structures? Structures primarily catch fire from radiant heat. Think about how, like if you have a campfire by your house, how much heat is being produced on your house. So like a wood shake. This is a historical structure in Venado into Mill Creek Road. how much heat is going to bombard the exterior wall of that house and is over time going to catch on fire. And then the second is embers. And you see this house here has material on the roof. It doesn't have gutters. The wood, just you can see the second level deck right there. It's sagging. There's place for an ember to get into it. And what we're trying to do tactically here is actually try to, this person's done a great job of weeding their grass. The grass is real short. You can see the evacuation tag here from the Sonoma County Sheriff. We actually intentionally lit this grass on fire. So we cut hand line around this house and we lit it on fire. We barely can get it burning. Here's the main wall bridge fire here coming down the canyon. You'll see some of these redwood trees like you would see in a winter storm really start moving in the wind. And so we got the main flame front here, and then you're going to start seeing how this fire behavior picks up and how embers cause additional fires. But back to about what you need to do now or what you need to be prepared for. Please do your part to keep your roof free of material because that's where an ember can land. Building construction is very costly. The county does have fire adapted communities, or Sonoma County Adapts, or SoCo Adapts is coming to portions of the Lower Russian River. That's an opportunity with some reimbursement. Carleon Safford, Permit Sonoma is heavily involved in that to start looking at retrofitting structures. Similar to how if you live in a floodplain, which we're all familiar with, how you would elevate your structures. Now we're now talking about, hey, live in a fire zone. How do you make your house never going to be fireproof, but more resistant from fire? So now you can see the wall bridge fire influenced by the microclimate here of the wind now coming at my location. So those are things we need you to do. But getting back to that fundamental thing about evacuating when the time comes, get out early because you saw in the previous video, the road conditions. You're going to see now what this is going to look like if you get stuck at your house, if you get stuck in an area. Even as firefighters, I'm going to leave before I feel my life is threatened, and it's going to be pretty bad. So this is what you can expect. What I look at is, when my visibility goes down to very little, like I can't see my feet, which you'll see here in a little bit, the smoke starts banking down. That's telling me that the smoke column is being pulled down by the downward movement of air and being sucked back into the base of the fire. So if you start seeing poor visibility, if you're at the fire, that tells you, hey, it's time to go, even if you're not being told to evacuate. So please leave on your own, leave early. That gives you more options. So just be prepared. So think about your gas tank, your vehicle being ready to go, your neighbors who maybe don't have cell phone service. How are you going to get a hold of your neighbors? And there's programs like COPE, Citizens Organized to Prepare for Emergencies. Sebastopol has a very active Map Your Neighborhood program. There's also some talk about ham radios and GMRS radios being used for people to work neighbor to neighbor. And that's going to be huge in these areas where power could go out. Technology could fail us because, well, it does fail us in the Lower Russian River and north or west part of the county. And so being prepared. And so this is kind of that extreme fire behavior. Back to fire behavior, we're pretty good at stopping a fire that stays on the surface of the earth and burns, as you can picture, as just a wall of flames advancing. That's where we're effective with fire hoses and hand tools and bulldozers. Once it starts leaping ahead of itself with these embers, like you're seeing here, this ember landed in a blackberry bush on the other side of the road, that's when we're not as effective. And pretty soon you're going to see the wind, you're going to see the trees start moving, and then I'm going to be getting out of here, picking my camera up and going. But this is extreme fire behavior in the redwood forest. This is something that I'm never going to say you can make your house fireproof from this. And you can see, all these embers raining, or the pieces of the redwood trees raining down. They're not on fire, so we don't call them embers. But this is the force of the fire in the redwood forest. This is what is being seen on the fires like the Dixie fire that are burning right now in other parts of California. Not redwood trees, but this type of fire behavior that we're not effective in controlling. So this Wallbridge fire wasn't a wind-driven fire like we saw in 2017 or 2019. This was just topography and this intensity of the fire that we don't have enough firefighters. We can't get around. So please do your part at your house to do defensible space, manage your vegetation, how you look at how your house is built. And then you can also see here too, while doing our part, we can start looking at more vegetation management along the roads, roadside treatments, so firefighters can get in, you can get out. We can use roads if a fire starts along the road, and in general, fires start where people are at. So prevention, people are at is where fires happen. Wallbridge lightning, but most fires are started by people. So if we can start treating along roads, and then I know some of the people on the call were talking about strategic fire breaks, ridgetop fuel breaks. There's some work being done near Mount Jackson that was used last year in the Walbridge fire. And here's the last video I'm going to show. It's just I stopped in the road and just shot kind of a 360 view of the fire here. So this is what it looks like when the forest is on fire in a redwood fire and redwood forest fire. And you can hear some of the background noise is actually propane tanks at some of the houses that are burning. We have firefighters there. That there's actually a near miss as I'm shooting this video down the road a little bit that I didn't know about until after the fact. So this is what it is, you know, fire on both sides of the road. Talked about prepping your structure, defensible space, how your structure's built, talking about managing vegetation along roads to stop fires, slow fires, get us in, get you out. Strategic fuel breaks where we can, get bulldozers, air tankers being effective retardant to stop a fire before it gets into populated areas. It's become apparent over the last couple of years that us trying to put in a fuel break or build a big wide dozer line and causing a tremendous amount of environmental damage, and it's just not being effective when these embers then land over the dozer line. So this fire you see burning in this video and in the previous videos, if we can keep that fire on the surface of the earth, that's ideal. We're effective in that type of scenario. And it's so around your house, we call it defensible space, but as we talk more about just land management in general, limit up the trees so the fire on the surface doesn't spread into the tops of the trees, and then reducing the fire intensity that's burning on the surface of the earth, reducing the surface fire intensity. And so that's doing burn piles, that's grazing. There's other alternatives like logging or mastication, but all that's doing, in my opinion, is restoring the natural process of what wildfire is. Wildfire is burned across the earth before we started putting it out. We've been putting it out roughly for 100 years or so. And now that accumulation and also actually planting vegetation and then putting homes has has led to the situation we're in. So, and in closing, my purpose tonight was not to scare anybody. It was just to educate and inform that redwood forests do burn. There is something you can do. Unfortunately, now it's a little bit too late with the 2021 fire season, and I'm also busy to partner with, but let's keep this momentum, this stuff going into the winter and the fall months and prevent fires whenever we can prevent them. And then let's keep being prepared, taking care of ourselves, taking care of our neighbors, and working together because as CAL FIRE, we're pretty much only most times just a response agency, but there's a lot more that we need to do before the fire. So remember, early evacuations, maintain your house, ratchet it up a little bit. When you hear about a red flag, I get nervous about any type of outdoor fire, but just be extra prepared on the red flag days. And we're getting into the windy part of the year, the fall. Hopefully we get some early rains, but let's do everything we can working together to prevent a fire and be the best prepared we can be. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair, and thank you for inviting me tonight.
Thanks, Marshall. Anyone on the council have any questions for Marshall? Alice?
Chief Revitalization, thank you for that. I do have a question. You mentioned propane tanks. When we do need to evacuate while we're grabbing our animals and in that state of panic, what do we need to do with our propane tanks that our homes run on and things like barbecue tanks, things like that? How can we make your job easier?
Okay, so I'll answer, and remember, this is a little bit of an opinion answer. I'm answering this a lot from my experiences, and also I try to keep up on the research. So first off, the 5 gallon, like for your barbecue, ideally, I'm going to tell you to put those inside your house, because unfortunately, by the time they become a problem inside your house, that means your house is on fire and we're probably not going to be there. The other option is you try to put them as far away as you can from your house or in an area that's not going to burn, like a gravel driveway, but that's maybe putting you in more jeopardy trying to do that. So either inside your building, inside your structure, or far enough away. If you do put them far away, just remember then they could surprise a firefighter when they quote unquote blow up. How they're going to blow up is they're going to heat up. the gas in them is going to expand. It's going to exceed the ability for the pressure relief valve on these tanks. These tanks are made not to blow up, but too much heat's going to bombard them, and they're going to then not be able to vent enough or vent quickly enough, and then they're going to explode and put metal pieces in all directions. So that's the problem with those small 5-gallon ones. If you put them in your house, you know, if you hear about a red flag, maybe that's a good time to move them inside your house ahead of time, so you're not then trying to do it when you only have a couple moments. Also think about if it's a vacation rental or something like that, make sure those folks know you have like a pre-scripted or checklist they need to do if there's a red flag, or I'm even going to say a fire weather watch. Now the bigger tanks, the ones that are filled up, and you know, I don't know the exact quantity of all of them, but 250, 500 gallons. The best you can do there is clear the vegetation away from them so they do not get bombarded by heat. Ideally, if you could relocate, now people are also burying them, that's great. They still have the same potential to what's called blow up or levee. So we want to reduce the bombardment of heat. So no wood pile stacked next to them. No, you know, hopefully not next to a building or a shed that could catch fire. But then if that building's burning already, we're probably not going to be there anyway. But those big tanks are a big hazard. So the best you can do is reduce the amount of material that'll burn around them so they don't get bombarded by heat. Another trick you can do is try to keep all your tanks full all the time, because as a liquid, the liquid can absorb a lot more heat than a vapor. So the fuller you keep it, the better it'll absorb that heat. So, but good question.
Thanks. Vesta?
Are those evacuated signs still available at the sheriff's substations, or is there another way to get them if you just don't happen to be going to the substation?
Okay, so the sheriff evacuation signs, I have some at my office there by Corbell. I can get you if you want to contact me, but I also believe the sheriff does have them available. So I would stop by the sheriff substation, and if they don't have any, you can give me a call, but they should have some there as well.
Do the
And those
fire,
sorry.
do the fire stations have them?
We do, because we were part of the distribution plan back in May, but not, some of the stations may have given out all their supplies and haven't been replenished by the Sonoma County Sheriff. But I have kept some in my vehicle to give out at meetings I go to and other events. So in theory, yes, but I can't guarantee you that every fire station has a cache of them.
Also, a lot of people don't know that Sonoma County Animal Control does come by and take care of animals when you've evacuated. All you have to do is call them and they will put you on their route. It's a pretty kind thing for people who can't transport all their animals. And as Pip knows, when you're taking care of feral cat colonies, they will come by and feed the feral cat colony for you as well. It's a very sweet thing. And I thank them for doing that.
Absolutely. And thanks for bringing that up, because as firefighters, we hate to say it, we do forget about the animals. So anytime there's an evacuation warning or order, it should trigger those types of agencies to help out so we don't forget about animals. Thank you.
Yeah, I can just add to that a bit. Like Sonoma County Animal Services will do that. And they are part of the emergency response team for the county of Sonoma, so which is really great. And then they coordinate with the rest of our animal organizations in the county if we need to go in and help them or support them or take them. And so there is a resource to do that. Lisa, did you have your hand up?
I do. We got a free home hardening visit by the fire inspector and a deputy, and that was really helpful. So I wanted to just encourage people to do that. It's free, and they'll walk around your property and tell you everything you forgot to do or could still do to make your house even safer. So that was a wonderful free county service.
And just to, sorry to interrupt, but I just put the link in there for that Sonoma County program. It's called SOCO Adapts, and it may not be available everywhere, but there is a map at that link. It's a little tricky because CAL FIRE, we enforce for defensible space, whether it be the state law or the county ordinance. But that SOCO Adapts program is also looking at building construction, which is sometimes gets ignored because it's not a law. But in my opinion, as important or more important is how your building is built. And that SoCo Adapts is a great program, and hopefully I think there are plans to expand that as well, which will be great.
Great. Any other council members have any questions or comments? Okay, let's go to the anyone on Zoom or Facebook.
If any of the attendees has a question, you can raise your hand or you can submit it via the Q&A.
Okay, thanks, Marshall. And I look forward to talking to you in the next week or so.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And just to give a plug for myself, is we're doing community meetings in Cazadera. We did one last Saturday. So about every 2 weeks, we're going to do one at PPI coming up, and then also one at Timber Cove to kind of get this same message out there to prevent and be prepared. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Wait, Lisa, did you have something to say or?
No, that was just another thank you
Oh, okay.
to the chief.
All right. So our next item is Tasha from CARES. She is going to talk for about 5 minutes about what's going on with El Molino High. I just want to remind everyone, especially in the audience or in the public, that the MAC has no real influence on outcome here at all. But since this has been such a big topic in the community over the last year or so, we thought it would be a good idea to have a brief talk about what some folks are doing. And then Tasha, I believe you're going to share some contact information so people can contact you directly with any comments or questions about this outside of the MAC. So Tasha, you're up.
Hi everyone. Sorry I had to log back out and log in because I just lost my sound like a minute ago. So bear with me. I do have a PowerPoint presentation that I'm gonna share with you guys. So let me get it pulled up here. So bear with me. Hold on. Let me see if I can get pulled up here. So bear with me, or while I get it pulled up. See. Sorry, hang tight. See. Let me see, I'm trying to.
Oh, now we can't hear you, Tasha.
Tasha, we can't hear you. You're on mute or something.
You're unmuted according to us, but something on your side is stopping the sound.
We still can't hear you, Tosh. Hello, Tasha? Can you hear us, Tasha? Raise your hand if you can hear us. Oh, she's gone. We lost her connection. Why don't we move on to the next topic? And if she comes back, we can get her. Oh, there she is.
Sorry, I lost sound and I'm having technical like issues right now, so bear with me. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I tried to pull up the PowerPoint presentation to share with you guys, but it's not pulling up. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk off of what I had on the PowerPoint. And I'm going to talk about the rush process, the cost, the condition of the school, and other health and safety issues. On the rush process, they decided that they were going to consolidate and move our kids from El Molino over to the Annalee campus and move the Laguna students and the district office over to El Molino in 5.5 months. That was way too soon for them to do that, especially when there needed to be a full CEQA review, the California Environmental Quality Act review done before they could even move to consolidation. And the district did not complete that. And that is a huge issue. You know, and then we have the fact that we are consolidating, you know, these kids into one campus during a public health emergency. We had the pandemic, you know. Yes, these kids are wearing masks, but they are still not completely protected. And I can guarantee not every, you know, student in that school is vaccinated right now. Then we have the issue of costs. For a bus pass for the kids to ride the bus from West County Transportation Agency, their fee is $292.50. That is an exorbitant amount on our Russian River community. You know, not every parent can afford that. And yes, there is, you know, sliding scale fees and complete fee waivers available, but that is up to West County Transportation Agency in the district to approve, and it's very limited. So that's not to say that every parent is going to qualify for that. And that is an issue. Then we also have the issue of the cost to rebrand. And that is, the district claims that they are saving $1.2 million by moving our kids from El Molino over to Annalee, but yet they're spending that $1.2 million on rebranding Annalee. They have gone through and they have repainted a bunch of fixtures over at Annalee. And if you even go into the El Molino office where the line used to be, it is now painted what I think is an ugly green color, and a lot of other people do too. But the fact is, the superintendent claimed in a Facebook post that none of this is permanent, but yet in order to fix that, it has to be painted back to the original colors. So how they're saying that it's not permanent, I don't understand. And then the school conditions over at Annalee. We have had lovely Naomi Hufstetter, who went to the campus the day before school started on August 11th, and she took a ton of pictures of the conditions of the campus. And we have, you know, we have dry rot. They've found black substance that could be mold, not sure. Rusted park benches, like wads on the ceilings, like hazards left out in the middle of the campus, just all kinds of dangerous hazards for our students who are packed into this building. And then, you know, on orientation and the first day of school, we've had, you know, nothing but shoulder to shoulder, kids packed nothing but shoulder to shoulder in the building. On orientation, parents were packed in their shoulder to shoulder too. There is not adequate spacing in this. And then again, this is a public health emergency, and there's not adequate spacing for this. And then since the first day of school, we've had other health and safety issues come up. We've had a lack of restroom availability, so students have been unable to use the restrooms during their breaks, and they have to leave during class to go use the restroom because they just don't want to wait in line. We've had the same thing going on with kids trying to get lunch. There have been kids who have gone hungry at school because they only have 30 minutes for a lunch break and the lines are exorbitant. And so the solution that the district has said is that they're going to implement more lunch lines, but they have not implemented a solution about staggering lunches. And they say they have no plans to stagger lunches so that our kids can go ahead and eat. Thankfully, a lot of parents have packed their kids' lunches for them to take to school so that they can get lunch. And then we've had numerous.
Tasha,
Yes.
we have 5 minutes. We had 5 minutes for this, and you're now going about on 6. We need to go to public comment on it.
Okay, I can wrap it up really quick. I just have one more just like one more sentence to say, and then I can wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we've had other safety issues such as injuries and fights and like numerous other like safety concerns such as kids not being able to cross the street.
All right. Great. Can you just tell people who to contact, how to contact CARES?
Yes, I'm gonna cover that. To get involved, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram. On Facebook, we have our Keep Our Lions Roaring page and our West Sonoma County Union High School District Recall, and it's the initials and then recall. And then Instagram, it's at Save Elmo. If you want to donate, you can donate. You can go to saveelmo.com and it will have all our information for being able to donate. And then we have August 25th as our deadline to turn in recall signatures. We have September 11th, barbecue and brews event. And then we have our trial for our CARE lawsuit on September 22nd.
Sorry, my dogs are playing. Do we have any comments or questions from the council? Tony.
Thank you. And thank you, Tasha. That was good information. And I appreciate you getting up here and speaking to us and letting us know how conditions are there at El Molino. I'm a graduate of El Molino a long time ago. Out in Cazadero, we have a lot of, well, we have fewer families, but moving them to Annalee, it's going to be quite disruptive. And we're going to try to get behind you and see what we can do to help out with that. Thank you.
I think you said Vesta, but I can't hear you, Pip. Your dogs probably, huh? So I appreciate this as well, Tasha. I think the biggest thing that happened for the school was that the community was not informed in advance that they were going to do this. They had done a study without ever talking to the community. And then they made the decision against the community's advice. And the CEQA studies, but not doing the CEQA studies is literally against the law, which is what the lawsuit is about. And so that is probably the most important thing right now, is that following the rules, that's what students are supposed to do, that's what teachers are supposed to do, and that's what a board is supposed to do. So the saveelmo.com is for raising money for the lawsuit. I think that's an extremely important thing. There's a lot of students, people who've moved to this community because of the schools, and there's children coming up who are ready to go to the high school shortly. And if we don't have the high school there, that's going to be a problem. It's basically mistreating the community, mistreating the students, not listening to the community about our fear and our safety for our children. And so we're really hoping that we can make some advance to change this as things go forward. And also with the Sonoma County Office of Education study, it would change how the feeder schools go into the high schools as well. So we just need time. That's all we asked for, was time. So if you believe that we need schools in our community to help our community thrive and grow, please support saveelmo.com.
Chair, you're muted, Chair.
I'm sorry, I was trying to save you from two crazy coonhounds. Anyone in the public have their, I see a hand, Debbie has her hand raised, I believe. Debbie?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Yes, my name is Debbie Ramirez. Thank you, Tasha, for your update. I wanted to just add a couple of other points about the situation. I've been following it pretty closely since last fall. My biggest concern for the Russian River area around this is that with the closure of El Molino, no longer does anybody in the far west county, as they're calling it, has access to a comprehensive high school. Laguna is a continuation school. You can't get credits there to go on to college. It's a good school, but it's not comprehensive. And when you look at the size of this school district, which is over 400 square miles, the majority of the tax revenue that comes into this district is paid by people that are served by El Molino High School. So there's a huge injustice that this happened in this way without heeding the public. So the recall, I think, is very important. One of the board members that was that was being recalled actually already resigned. So now there's just 2 left to recall. And I encourage those of you that don't know the full story to go ahead and look at these websites and follow along, because it's important to preserve education in West County. And I live in the Annalee attendance area, but I've seen this disaster coming since last fall, and I've been doing all that I can to help avoid it. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Anyone else? I don't see any hands raised. Jason, am I missing anyone?
No, Chair, we have no further questions.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, everyone. So we're gonna move on to committee and staff reports. We got 2 things here. The first one is very quick. Want to appoint Lisa to the trash ad hoc. My understanding is that there's quite a bit more that can be done right now, so we need some more manpower on that. So with no objections, I'd like to have Lisa join the group, and I think she's graciously accepted that beforehand.
Yes, I'm happy to join with some people power.
That's awesome. Okay, and then vacation rental. Vesta.
Okay.
Vesta's going to give a brief update on what the latest is on what this fabulous committee has been doing.
Yeah, it's actually been wonderful. The purpose of the MAC is to be a representative of our community to the Board of Supervisors, and in this particular case to Permit Sonoma as well. Just back on July 20th, the Permit Sonoma, headed by Gary Helfrich, gave a workshop to the Board of Supervisors. And I was very, very happy. Thank you so much, Gary and Permit Sonoma, that they actually took some of our suggestions that we had in the last report that came from our survey and from also the various things that we have done, and are putting them into the ordinance, and or at least considering them for the ordinance. And that is our job as MAC representatives, is to influence where we're going. The ordinance is a huge a huge document, and that everybody has to follow the rules. And I think one of the most important things, oh, and just so you know, I do have the full report, which is attached to the meeting notes tonight, and I'm putting it up on our website to russianrivermac.com as soon as this meeting is over. So the first thing is that, yes, our considerations were taken into consideration. And one of those aspects of it, which is encouraging, is that this is a land use issue, and it's all been run by Permit Sonoma, and they are actually considering switching this over to a business license issue, which has more teeth. One of the issues that we've all had in terms of the community is a lack of enforcement from Permit Sonoma. Business licenses have more teeth for enforcement. So that is one of the things that we find encouraging. Also, we were asking for more access to the 24/7 phone number. It's complicated to get it at this point. You go onto the Permit Sonoma website, try to look up the address. It's not so easy. Turns out there are 4 permit designations. So it's complicated. So one of the solutions they have come up with is that they have a 24/7 call service, just like Marin County, for people to call, and then that call service calls the one who can solve the problem. If the problem is not solved within the 30 to 60 minutes that is required by the ordinance, then literally the owner and manager get dinged. And that's an important thing, because right now people are calling the sheriff, and the sheriff can't do anything about it. So to have an access for enforcement and for solving a problem would be a huge issue for people who are having problems. And yes, people do have problems. And one of the difficult things has been that we don't actually know how many vacation rentals there are. There's like a general number, and what the county said that they have 479 or something in our area, but they're not identified specifically to where they are in these neighborhoods. So you could look at their maps and say, okay, there's one in this neighborhood, but that's not necessarily true. It might be that there are 3 or 4. And one of the things that we had tried to do, which I can't say we've completely succeeded, is to map the vacation rentals. We did get 67 responses to our survey. That has been helpful. But the Permit Sonoma also has a way of mapping. Their mapping has been used for fire safety and to determine how many vacation rentals are in a fire zone. And that could also be used for density. So I'm kind of hoping that they will find a way to use their fire safety mapping to solve the issue of how many vacation rentals are in a neighborhood, and therefore how many is too many in a neighborhood. And that becomes one of the issues that we're really hoping they're going to say is that this is the limit for a neighborhood. They're trying to define what that means, and they created a thing called it's 500 or 1,000 feet. They're going to decide, are 2 next to each other too close? How do you want to space them out? I'm hoping that we can come up with something that's a little more neighborhood by neighborhood defined. It's hard because it's an entire county that they're trying to solve these problems for, not just us in our canyons and our hills, which is really, really hard. Also, one of the things that they're doing is they're tracking the online advertising. So they have a scraping program. So one of the things that the public in our area objected to our committee doing was, what if we were putting things on the map that were unlicensed and unpermitted? That is not our job. We don't want to do that. If we're going to put them up on the site as a location so people can see where they are, we're making sure that they are all permitted, because we're going on to the Permit Sonoma site and verifying that information. We don't want to be a policing organization. They already do that. So someone said to us, let Permit Sonoma do this. They do this. They have a very robust program that scrapes the internet to see who's advertising, and then check that against their system for who has the permit or who does not, and then they deal with it. That's not our job. We're really just trying to influence what they're coming up with for the new ordinance. And then one of the things we were concerned about was parking, and parking also impacts emergency vehicle safety. So we had suggested using the county has maps and emergency vehicle access maps. So one of those things they talked about was limiting the number of say like if a vacation rental can't provide parking off the street, then maybe they can't have that vacation rental there. And that is dependent upon what are the street widths that the fire department needs to get through. And we know just because we live in these neighborhoods that people will have like 9 to 12 foot wide roads. They're asking for a minimum of 20 foot wide. And we ask them to define that 20 feet to not include the shoulders, because there are a lot of people who will park half on the street and half on the shoulder. And if you say that the 20 foot has to be pavement edge to pavement edge, that might be a more clearly defined width of a street that you can put a vacation rental on that street and have parking on the street as opposed to on the property. A lot of these properties are on steep hills. They really don't have room for parking on the property. So that would be, again, another thing that would help define where it can be, when it can be, and whether it's going to work for the neighborhood. And they're also talking about emergency preparedness for vacation rental guests. One of the things that Marcia Turbeville talked about was preparing the guests to know that they may have to evacuate during an emergency, whether it's a fire or a flood or an earthquake, that to have a book and a manual for these guests that is in every one of the vacation rentals that, you know, literally introduce the people to this. This is going to happen because right now, a lot of people in the neighborhood are banging on the door and saying, we need to evacuate, because those people are coming here without the Nixle alerts on their cell phones. So to have a system that's established for the vacation rentals as well. So that covers a lot of what we feel that we have like literally influenced the rewriting of this ordinance. And for that, I'm really proud of our work and also proud of our community for getting involved. If you still want to tell us, as we try to get this mapping thing, tell us of the vacation rentals in your neighborhood. We would be glad to take that information. Again, we want to make sure that we have verified it with Permits Sonoma. We're not trying to interfere with anybody's business. That's or their neighbors or any of the rest of it. That's, I just want to make that clear. We're just trying to influence the writing of the ordinance. Gary Helfrich told me that he does not have the dates for the next workshop. Their next presentation to their next workshop and presentation to the Board of Supervisors is scheduled to be in October, but they don't have specific dates for the workshop coming up. So I would say that, that you can, in fact, sign up for alerts for topics that you're interested in on the Sonoma County website and on the Permit Sonoma website. So that would be a very good thing to do so that you know when these workshops are happening. We will also, as the committee, post them up on the Lower River Facebook page when we find out what they are. And we will also post them up on the RussianRiverMac.com Facebook website as well, since we really want people to participate. The more the community participates in this process, the more we're going to get an ordinance that's going to work for everybody, both the businesses and the residents, and of course, even emergency services, which is really, really, really important. And the health of the river, as we know, since we're doing this entire marketing campaign on trying to get people to love and respect our home. So we feel like we're making progress and we're proud of our work. So thank you. Everybody who's participated, and please keep participating as much as you can. Thank you.
Chair, mute yourself.
Sorry about that. I just want to reiterate something that Vesta said at the very beginning of this, and that I've been on the MAC for almost 3 years now, and this is the first time I felt like a committee actually has been working with the county, and Permit Sonoma has been cooperating with this committee, and we are actually advising our supervisor and the Board of Supervisor on what's important to us in the Lower Russian River. So thank you all for the work, and thank you, Gary, too, for actually participating in helping where he can. It's been a really great process. It's rocky at times, but the end result is going in the right direction.
And Gary has been responding to specific items where we felt we were ignorant, or maybe he pointed out to us that we were ignorant of the process. And so I just can't laud him enough for his total responsiveness to us. And we really do feel positive about this. So thank you, Gary.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions from the council? Naomi.
Vesta, any idea how long until they have their own, meaning the PRMD, how long until they have their version of the 24/7 phone number to call?
No, I didn't get a date on that one, but I know that they're trying to establish this ordinance by early next year, like, you know, the goal is February of next year. So they're going to just keep, or the goal of presenting the final document is February of next year.
Okay.
But this is something that Marin County already has, and so they know the company, and they've already talked to the company who would do the 24/7 calls. So maybe we can encourage that part of it to come on sooner. Who knows?
Almost like an answering service then, rather than maybe a county employee taking the calls.
Yes, it's actually 24/7 available. Yes. So that it's not like one of those 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, not at all. It's literally 24/7. And then that puts all the responsibility, it makes it easy for people in the neighborhood, but it puts all the responsibility on the property manager and owner. And also makes a record. It makes a record of the call.
But then also to that point, a neighbor or someone who has concerns will only be able to possibly move on that concern if the people answering the 24/7 number actually know that that's an operating vacation rental and have contact info versus people who are operating without permits and don't have any contact info out there, right? So it's almost kind of like what we had hoped was going on already, with that little catch sitting in there, that if the property hasn't been represented correctly that it is renting, then maybe it still might be hard for a neighbor or someone with concerns to get their concerns addressed, because perhaps the answering service might not know how to contact who's in charge with the property, maybe.
Vesta, you're muted, Vesta.
There you go. That's an interesting thought I hadn't considered, because they you know, I guess I'll just have to ask Gary that one.
Yeah,
There's other question to ask Gary.
I think they're going in the right direction. I'm just seeing almost like the same hole we have now with another entity. But it sounds like everyone's working together to try to help, you know, those with concerns. I just can already see those who are on the down low, if you will. Their info's not out there already, so it's going to be hard, you know, to reach them. But perhaps they have an idea of how to do that.
Well, they do have the scraping, and so maybe that's something that would help. But beyond that, just to have an easy number 24/7.
I agree. Right. It makes sense.
Huge, a huge benefit. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other council members have a comment or question for Vesta? All right, let's move to the public, and I see someone's hand, and this is the person that which is Gary. And
Great.
So
Gary, we can ask questions right now.
Gary.
Go ahead, Gary.
Gary, you have to unmute yourself. Gary, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I had to do a double unmute there because I've got a strange system. So no, I just wanted to fill in some blanks on the 24/7 call center. We are indeed in talks with the vendor that Marin uses, and that's going to proceed independent of the ordinance, but it is a procurement process, so don't expect overnight results because we have to enter into a contract. However, it's not just a call center. It's somebody who has complete access to all the county records. So when you call in with an address, they will immediately be able to verify whether or not there is a permit issued for that property and if the permit is valid. So that, in fact, it'll help us identify the unpermitted rentals. The other thing that they will do is then call back the person filing the complaint to tell them what action was taken and verify that the problem was rectified. So the idea is it completely closes the loop with the property manager, the operator, and the neighbor. So that's how that system works. But we can implement that under our existing ordinance.
Oh, cool. Does anybody else have any questions for Gary? Because he's really good at answering them. My God, Gary, I think you're off the hook.
Tip, you're muted, Tip.
Oh, sorry. We're gonna move on to Neil, unless Gary, did you have something else that you wanted to add?
Sorry, Gary, I muted you there.
I know, double muty. Also want to emphasize that we're not going back to the board. We're streamlining this process, and the next public hearing will be with the Planning Commission with what we're doing is we're going to, for the next 2 months, do public outreach. Then we're bringing a draft ordinance to the Planning Commission for recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Our feeling is we'd like to just get the input from the communities throughout the county, develop a draft ordinance, and begin the public hearing process. So there's not a board hearing in October. Just want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That sounds like a good process, actually.
Yeah, I'm encouraged.
All right. Okay, Neil.
Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute there. Did it work?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Well, I'd just like to start out with a couple of kudos real fast. First of all, the continuing admiration I have for Vesta and Nick and the folks who've been leading up the subcommittee. I mean, it's been tremendous work and leadership. Secondly, is to Gary. I've been involved with the county, or was in county government for over 40 years, and I'm really impressed. This is a real problem in the community, and these people are really taking it seriously. And you know, we'll see the result, but I think the effort is evident, and I just think it's really, really important. Listening to the workshop or the hearing the other day with the Board of Supervisors, some of my perhaps inherent, and Vesta would probably speak to that better, my inherent pessimism about what's possible was diminished when I saw what came together in terms of some of the key takeaways. And as I saw them, it was one, the idea of moving to the business license approach, which I think is excellent. I think it's the best step that can be taken. We're not going to get to conditional use permit, then the automatic complaint, and then the interactive mapping. So I think those are key elements that are going to bring the community into better involvement, and also to take account of the neighbors' concerns that have been self-evident from the very beginning of this program. So thank you to everyone for their work, and all the best for the future.
If anybody wants to find the link to that workshop, we do have it on the russianrivermac.com .org, excuse me, website. We have all the links to the variations on the theme of the meetings, the documents, also on our report, which is attached to the meeting agenda tonight. So you can go there and listen if you miss them. Pip.
Unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I don't see any other hands raised in the public, unless Jason, you see something I'm not.
No, we have no more hands.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to staff report. There's 3 things that Elise is gonna talk about: security and lighting funding, vegetation management, and a parking update.
Thanks so much. These are just continuation comments of projects we've been working on for quite a while, just to let you know what's going on with each one. Security and lighting, we've been working with the Frog Group in Grenville to fund cameras and improved lighting to expand the downtown safety into 3rd Streets and 4th Street, and to provide, the sheriff has specifically asked for provision of video cameras in order to improve their capacity to arrest and enforce. There was a system put up years and years ago on the bridge and in certain areas, and it is now defunct. So we have funded replacing that, and it will also be part of, the lighting will also be part of the Russian River, I'm sorry, the Grenville Main Street ADA update as well. The vegetation management, Leo has been handling that, but he's out of town right now. So he sent me an update to share with you. On July 13th, the Board of Supervisors approved $300,000 from PG&E settlement funds for Permit Sonoma to work with top-ranked community organizations to resolve CEQA vegetation management project issues. So what this is about is a number of Russian River areas, such as Rio Nido, for example, put in proposals and didn't adequately address CEQA, so the board couldn't provide the funding needed. And so what they did instead was provided funding so that we could resolve those, help the community groups resolve those CEQA issues. And Permit Sonoma is using that money to hire 2 extra senior environmental specialists to do this work. The board then set aside $3 million in funds from the next allocation of vegetation management grants to fund these projects. So it's taking a little bit longer, but we're working hard to get those done. Ag and Open Space District has been convening meetings in partnership with our office to discuss the CEQA process and next steps with the West County grantees. Linda, Leo, Permit Sonoma, APOSD, and CAL FIRE all recently went out and did key site visits to the Bohemian Corridor in Gernwood and Rio Nido to look at site conditions and discuss how the proposed projects fit into the larger regional framework. We're trying to create cells where the fire services will be able to have a chance to fight a more limited area when we have good fuel breaks. Let's see, is there anything else here? There's a lot of information on Permit Sonoma's page, and he's given us a couple links, but if you just go to Permit Sonoma Fire Prevention Vegetation Management, it'll talk about the special program that Lisa Namenson brought up earlier about Adapt Sonoma and the funding and support that they are giving us in terms of vegetation updates. It's really a great thing to have your home inspected because it's a free service, and then we're going to be funding, or Adapt Sonoma is going to be funding some to help residences to handle some of the changes that are needed. Parking is an ongoing issue, as you all know. It's kind of a whack-a-mole problem, but we're at it all the time. Supervisor Hopkins is working with the county and administrative office to find funding and allocate funding so that we have some dedicated enforcement in this area, and that's ongoing. You all probably know that Regional Parks has piloted a new program, a shuttle program, where people park right next to 101 and then are shuttled here. They have gotten up to 400 people a weekend. And what we're hoping is that that is decreasing the number of duplicate cars so that people who are coming down to tube down the river, instead of leaving multiple cars along the way, they can drive up to 101 and then go along the shuttle. It's not perfect yet. We have people who say that they're tubing from Steelhead Beach down to Sunset Beach, and then they stop at Mother's Beach instead because, people don't always know where they're stopping, and then they have to walk down River Drive. So there are some issues that still need to be resolved, but that's the point of a pilot project, is to work some of these kinks out. I've been working with CHP on the bus problems in terms of buses just stopping in miscellaneous places. We've been taking photos of the buses. I know I personally was stopped behind one that just decided to stop in the middle of the road, and then I could not get anywhere, which is unacceptable. So we've been asking community residents facing those problems to take pictures of the buses, and then CHP, and we've been working on sending them cease and desist letters telling them that they need to park in legal spaces and out of traffic, or they will be cited. So we'll see how effective that is, but so far that's the approach that we're taking. So those are my quick updates on things that are ongoing. Are there any questions there?
Thanks, Elise.
Thanks.
Jeanette. You're still on mute, Jeanette. Jeanette, you're still muted.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I just wanted to report that Pocket Canyon is becoming heavily involved in the vegetation program and in that huge wide area that I believe also includes Rio Nido. But our concern is it's basically a circle from Forestville down River Road, kind of around Martinelli anyway, and then 116, and there's a big circle of communities on that edge. And in the middle is a dense forest that hasn't burned in years. So they're attempting to take care of the internal part, control burns, fire roads, fire protection for the communities. And Oddfellows Park, Knoll Heights, Summer Home Park, I believe Hacienda is also involved in this. And they had a meet and greet at Oddfellows Park a couple of weeks ago for the stakeholders, and myself and Knoll Heights point person attended, and a large number of Oddfellow Park people, because they really were part of the group that initiated this. And I would like to tell a brief story of what's happening in the Knoll Heights area. That we did have a fire. We were told about this project and invited to take part and become stakeholders, which we agreed to do. So in the meantime, we had a fire up the hill, way past the dump area. And I heard the fire trucks going back and forth on the highway, and I thought, that's really odd. Well, as it turns out, they talked to the people on the highway. They couldn't find the fire. The person on the highway had no cell, no internet, and the neighbors were up the hill fighting the fire and put it out. They had no Wi-Fi, no cell, and so it could have been a disaster. And so because of that, we contacted Damien Bonet, who I believe is here this evening, and he came and talked to us. And we have people who are buying what is it? GMRS radios.
Yep.
And he tested it while he was in the neighborhood, and he could reach Fort Ross, Wildwood, other repeaters. And so we would not have to invest in that. So we are in the process of developing our system. And I can't thank Damien enough. He is an encyclopedia of information. So that's kind of where we are. And thank you very much, Damien. I can't tell you how much we appreciate your help. Maybe you can say a few words, but in general, we're really actively working on it out here in Pocket Canyon, and hope that we can get our heads up before we end the fire season. Thanks for the time.
Sure.
So Damien, I'd like to hear from you.
Well, let's
sorry.
Let's stick any other council member comments or questions. I mean, I'll just say one thing too, because Rio Nido is involved in vegetation management as well right now, and have been from the beginning on this. And what encouraged me encourages me the most about the process is CAL FIRE, and it seems the county is looking at this holistically and not community by community. So communities are directly involved, but it's bigger than that. It's bigger than Rio Neato. It's bigger than Grenville. It's bigger than everything. So they are looking at a holistic approach, and we're trying to figure out which pieces make the most sense that we can like get money for to get something done, but actually helps CAL FIRE and our firefighters fight fires across the lower Russian River. So that has been a very positive experience so far, and everyone should be like thankful to those that are looking at it that way and not just being so microscopic on protecting one particular thing.
Could I add that we also are around Knoll Heights area. We also have had CAL FIRE come out, and they did their prevention show, and they have started going around the neighborhood and inspecting the properties. So we're working on that also.
Great. All right, Vesta, you have your hand up, I see.
Yeah, in Forestville, we just transitioned from Forestville Fire to Sonoma County Fire, and so I said I wanted a neighborhood appraisal of homes to home. They literally went house to house. I saw them out there on the road, and I haven't got the report yet, but that's what we wanted, because we wanted to think as a neighborhood, what can we do to all together in a neighborhood take care of ourselves. I haven't been able to establish the map your neighborhood thing here, but at least if we could get the people who are taking care of their property and the ones who aren't, and the ones who aren't get somebody official to tell them you really got to clean it up. That was the main goal. There are some properties that are not owned by anybody who lives here, and that's one of those issues that are difficult. I talked to Carleone from CAL FIRE, and she said it's actually against the law for us to go onto those properties and clean them up. And yet that's what we want to do, because there is nobody to contact. So that's one of those real challenges for a lot of us here. Someone told me that, in fact, it was at that meet and greet that we went to at Oddfellows, that a lot of these properties, lots were given out to people who, opened a bank account or did something back in the turn of the century in the early 20s. And so some of those properties, those lots are literally, you have no one to contact. So I would love to know, what do we do if we're willing to go in and clean up a piece of land? How do we get to do that if we can't reach the person who owns it?
Good question.
That is a great question.
Yeah.
Okay, any other council members? Then in the public, I don't see any raised hands. So the next item is call for agenda items for our next meeting. Vesta's got her hand raised. You always have your hand raised.
I know. I want to make sure that the Vacation Rental Committee is on it again.
Yeah.
We will know more about what has gone on since the time has passed. And so I want to make sure that everybody stays in line with paying attention. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else?
I got to bring up one more thing.
Oh, okay.
And it might or might not end up being on this agenda, but yesterday, Lisa Nominson and I met with the real estate developer person from Rotten Robbie, and they are talking about expanding the convenience store, making some changes on the piece of property that they have at the corner of Mirabelle and 116. They met, that man met with the Chamber of Commerce as well. We want to stay on top of this to find out what their plans are. Part of it was very simple, just take the empty lot, move the convenience store over to the empty lot, and either keep the pumps the same or expand maybe 2 more pumps. That sounds really simple, but I'm also concerned about the competition of the expanded convenience store with the 2 other businesses that are convenience stores in Forestville. One of them is Fred's Liquors, who just was acquired by a new owner. And then the other is Fast and Easy, which is literally across the street from Rotten Robbie. And it could have a very, very serious impact on that business. So those two businesses could be impacted by this. And so we will, Lisa and I will stay on top of this because we're kind of like that. And if we could put it on the agenda as a potential in case we learn something, would that work?
Yeah, or it can go to the land use standing committee. And I know Kyra's been copied on this issue as well, so it'll get covered in some way, Vesta.
Okay, cool.
Naomi.
Thanks, Pip. I was wondering if it's appropriate or not. Is there any way that maybe we could invite Linda back to give us more of an update on what's going on as far as fire prevention? I feel like in the last meeting, maybe she let us know that some money was awarded to the county. And I was just wondering if there's any news on how that's being utilized at this point. Have we got anywhere? That kind of a thing.
I think that's possible. Definitely. Anyone? Alice.
Yes, I was hoping that I could have time at the next meeting to give maybe a 2 to 3 minute update on Hacienda Bridge work that's been done and that's in process. There's some really exciting stuff going on around Mom's Beach and River Drive, Forest Hills.
Anyone else? Okay, anyone in the public have any items that they'd like us to consider for the agenda? Nothing? Speak now or forever hold your peace. We are always receptive to getting items for the agenda. We do make decisions based on time, what things that the MAC can in fact impact or advise our supervisor or the board of supervisors on. So those kind of take priorities, but we're open for any suggestions and agenda items, and we will do our best to accommodate. So forward those if you have them. We'll look at them in about a month and a half. All right, thank you guys. So with that, I think we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Don't we have to, like, a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yeah, Sorry.
Thank goodness you're here, Vesta.
I move to adjourn.
I want to crown him with power to adjourn.
I second.
I'll move to adjourn, okay, Pip?
All right, thanks, Vesta.
Second.
Okay, all right, Vesta moved, Tony seconded. And so with that, we are adjourned. All right, bye, guys.
Thank you,
Good night,
everybody.
all.
Thank
Good
you
night.
for participating.
Good night, you guys.
Thanks, everyone.